wanted to do something a little bit different today. And I promise you that if you stick with me, it's all going to tie together in the end. I wanted to do a video about a great movie from 1997. The movie is called Wag the Dog. And this movie is political satire that strangely has become an American reality. Now, I made this video a while ago, and it seems that I was, just as I'm about to post it, something else happens and makes it actually an even more relevant video. And so I go to rework it, and it kind of keeps snowballing. So I'm going to ask for a little bit of grace if in trying to make it more relevant, it ends up a little bit choppy. I apologize. And so that's why I wanted to still present it, even though I made this about a month ago and it's no longer necessarily the current event of the day. It does look at what the theme is, which is how we need to learn to recognize these media manipulations and go back to a time where we used our critical thinking in order to evaluate what it is that we're hearing through the media. On this movie, and yet I think it is such an important movie because it really, really will open your eyes to how spin and narrative, not only the reasons behind it, but how it's actually done in practice. And this is one of those quirky kind of cultish type movies that if you know, you know. And if you don't, when you finally watch it, you're like, where has this movie been all my life? Seriously. It's got an all-star cast. I mean, it's got Robert De Niro. It's got Dustin Hoffman. Anne Heche, this is her best performance of all time, if you ask me. Kirsten Dunst, Woody Harrelson. And then it's got a lot of those actors that, Dennis Leary's in it. It's got a lot of those actors in it that even if you don't know their names, when you see them, you'll recognize them. And really, it's just so powerful in a very fun and like I said, a very quirky way. So since I can't do a watch party, I decided to do a review and a reaction so that I can kind of show you enough of it that you're not going to get the whole gist of the movie. You're not going to get an appreciation of the whole movie, but you should pique your interest enough so that if you want to know more, you will go find it. You have the three main characters. The three main characters are Robert De Niro, Dustin Hoffman, and Anne Heche. And what it is Anne Heche is the, chief of staff for the President of the United States who is running for re-election, and just in time for the election, he gets caught assaulting the Firefly girl, and they have to keep it a secret until they just need the news to wait until after the election, let him get reelected, and then let the chips fall where they may. And so she brings in Conrad Breen, who is Robert De Niro, and he is the fixer. He's the spin doctor. And what he decides the answer is to get a distraction big enough that they can hide this story about the Firefly girl. And so what do? They decide to go to war. And they don't know who they're going to war with right at first. It takes them a while to figure that out. But they decide that they're going to go to war. And in order to convince the American public that this war is happening out of the blue, they go to a Hollywood producer who is Dustin Hoffman. And he is going to produce their war. And so, like I said, this movie shows not only why they do the spin, but more importantly, it shows you how they do the spin and how you can get a narrative like Meghan Markle had kids out there into the public and get it accepted. I mean, if you can convince the American public that there's a war when there isn't, what else? What can't you convince them of?
All right, you kids here in this room, what you hear here, what you say here, what you do here, if it gets out, you leaked it. Tell them what they need to know.
Oh, when it broke, the president said one thing. Get me Conrad Breen.
Anyway, what's the thing? We had an illegal immigrant 90-some years back. Didn't declare. You people get ahead in the polls, all of a sudden you get a little nervous. Made it past some secretary some years ago.
There was a group of Firefly girls from Santa Fe here last month. One of the girls expressed an interest in a Frederick Remington bust. The president took her into, the office behind the Oval Office for a period of...
3 minutes. It couldn't have been over 3 minutes. The Secret Service would back me up.
So it's not the illegal immigrant nanny thing. The girl's alleging... Jesus, Mary Joseph.
We're virtually certain that it is.
Maybe we could say it was a funny drug reaction to the flu.
So very quickly, Conrad Breen gets briefed on the situation, and right away they realize this is something more than an illegal immigrant nanny, and they need to really come up with something huge. And right away, without even knowing what it is that he's going to do, he starts right away. Okay, where's the president? What's he doing? Why is he there? He's in China. What's he doing there? Or he's in Japan. He's going to stay there. Keep him there for a day or two while we figure out how we're going to stop this news from breaking. Because the news is going to break. They know it's going to break. What they need to do, though, is they need to make sure that the news is that when it breaks, there's something bigger. There's a distraction. So before he even knows what it is that he's going to do, Conrad Breen, the fixer, he says right off the bat, okay, make sure you do a news conference. And in this news conference, deny that this has anything to do with the B-3 bomber. And of course, the very astute White House staff member says, but there is no B-3 bomber. And Conrad Breen's response is, damn right there's no B-3 bomber. And so it's the way that they say it that it's all innuendo. It's all innuendo that gets people thinking, well, reverse psychology. Oh, well, they're not denying it that badly. It must exist. And where does that, what's the next step after that? Well, so then they get ready and they get on a plane and they're ready to go meet with this Hollywood producer to produce a war. They don't know who they're fighting yet, but they're going to go produce a war. And you have to wonder, well, how can you produce a war that the American public is going to believe? And of course, Anne Hesh, I think her character's name is Winifred Ames. I think Ames is his last name. It's Winifred. But right off the bat, she's the perfect, neurotic foil to Conrad Breen's very calm, don't worry, we got this covered, we'll fix this. And as events occur, her neuroses become more and more legitimate as they get themselves into deeper and deeper crap trying to solve this very big problem. Because once they kind of get the ball rolling with the war, they're kind of stuck with finishing it.
Tell me again.
Look, don't worry about it. It's nothing new. During Reagan's administration, 240 Marines killed in Beirut. 24 hours later, we invade Grenada. That was their M.O. Change the story, change the lead. It's not a new concept. Like people we touch that, we'll talk more about it.
We can't afford a war.
We're not going to have a war. We're going to have the appearance of a war.
We cannot afford the appearance of a war.
What'll it cost?
But they would find out.
Who's going to find out? The American people?
Exactly.
Who's going to tell them? Huh? What'd they find out about the Gulf War? One video of one bomb falls down a chimney, blows up the building. The building could have been made out of Legos.
You really want us to go to war?
That's a general idea.
With who?
I'm working on it.
They arrive in Hollywood. They arrive at the big mansion of the Hollywood producer, who proceeds to say, why are you coming to me? You coming to me to start your war? You want me? Now, the funniest part about this is he really doesn't have a problem with producing a war. It's Stanley Motz, I think is the character's name. He just kind of goes on. He's like, okay, I'll produce your war. Now what? Who are we fighting against? Why are we fighting them? We got to have a motivation here. And it really doesn't take any convincing to the producer at all to say, we're going to fake a war and the American people are never going to know. He's like, okay, cool. What do you need from me? And right away, we need a theme song. We need to market. We need, how can we market this? How can we make, product placement? Everything automatically, the producer, that's what he does. He comes in and he brings in this team. He gets Willie Nelson. He's going to be the one to write the theme song. Of course, you have the running joke for a good portion of the movie. How do you rhyme with Albania? Because that's who they decide to go to war with. And then you have Dennis Leary as the fad king, and he's like, the coonskin cap. You could fold it up when you put it in your back pocket. How do you fold up a Mountie hat? It's not marketable. I can't work with that. And it's just unbelievable how, the producer is able to bring this cast of characters together in order to produce this war. And one of the more interesting early scenes is where you see how they get the media to kind of start the ball rolling.
Well, what one has to do, Mr. Morse, is to fight a holding action.
Holding action? They're going to run this man through the shredder.
During that time, of course, we will remain in...
Yeah, but he's got to come back sometime. What the hell is 1 or 2 days going to buy you? Look at all those hands. Where rabbit could he get out of this?
Comment, please, on the rumors. On the rumors that the president's flight, the president's delay is due to the situation in Albania.
There is... I'm not aware of the situation to which you refer.
Well, sir, we just learned that the State Department has set up a special Albanian task force at Op Center.
Mr. Swansky, I am... We have not... Mrs. Rose, yes.
Early this morning, General William Scott flew to Seattle. Is his trip connected with the B-3 bomber?
Mrs. Rose, to the best of my knowledge, there is no B-3 bomber.
Mr. Levy,
yes.
is the situation in Albania related in any way to the Muslim fundamentalist, anti-American uprising?
Now they get it. There you go. There's a little help.
They get this war going, and, Dustin Hoffman even films with Kirsten Dunst as the Albanian youth running from her, the Albanian terrorists. And of course, she's got this bag of Tostito chips in her arms, which he keeps telling her, don't worry, it's going to be a kitten later. They're going to put in a kitten. She's like, why can't I hold the kitten? Because we want more options. Because later, of course, they're going to AI generate in a kitten. And everything is all fine and good. They're furiously producing their war. They got their commercial. They got their fads. But the problem is there's another opponent in the election. And he gets savvy to the fact that there is no war, that it's all bullshit, and that it's just intended to keep the scandal off the front pages. And so who does he turn to? He turns to the CIA.
And while you hesitate, permit me to suggest that they are one and the same, your country and your job.
I'm doing my job, Mr. Breen. That's what you see me doing.
I'm doing my job, too.
You were doing?
I'm doing my job, too. And let me ask you something. Let me ask you a simple question. Why do people go to war? Why do they go to war?
I'll play your silly game.
Okay, why do they go to war?
To ensure their way of life.
Would you go to war to do that?
I have.
And if you went to war again, who would it be against? Huh? Your ability to fight a two-ocean war against who? Who? Sweden and Togo? That time has passed. It's over. The war of the future is nuclear terrorism. It is, and it'll be against a small group of dissidents who, unbeknownst perhaps to their own governments, have blah, 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 blah. And to go to that war, you have to be prepared. You've got to be alert. The public has got to be alert, because that is the war of the future. And if you're not gearing up to fight that war, then eventually the axe will fall, and you're going to be out in the street. And you could call this a drill. You could call this job security. You could call it anything you like. But I got one for you. You said go to war to preserve your way of life. Well, Chuck, this is your way of life. And if your spy satellites don't see nothing, if there ain't no war, then you can go home and prematurely take up golf, my friend. Because there ain't no war but ours.
Well, they managed to convince the CIA agent to take their side. They still have the other candidate in the election who's not going to take this lying down. Obviously, he has invested an awful lot of money into becoming the next president of the United States, and he knows damn well that the guy who is running is guilty of assault of a Firefly girl, so he's obviously not going to take this sitting down. And so he ends up cutting a better deal with the CIA on, his election. So the CIA decides, you know what? Yeah, we are going to reveal that there is no war. And so what do? They end the war. Okay? The CIA goes on the news and announces that they have ceased, that there is no longer any threat. We have come to a peace agreement, and they end the war. And, Dustin Hoffman is sitting there. He's in the midst of performance of the theme song. And they hear this on the news that the war is now over. And Dustin Hoffman goes, well, wait. I'm the producer of this war. I didn't end the war. And Conrad Breen goes, well, it doesn't matter. You saw it on TV. They just ended it. And now, for the first time, the producer is like, well, wait, it doesn't work that way. And Conrad Breen is like, well, of course it works that way. What the hell have you think we've been doing here this whole time? That's exactly how it works. It works by what you can convince the American public of. And whoever can convince them the loudest, the strongest, the bravest, the best, they are the ones that are the story and the narrative that's going to win. So the war's over. But it's still 5 days to the election. So now what are they going to do? Well, they decide that they are going to bring in the next phase, which is find a hero.
Along the Canadian border and overseas are standing down. And I must take this opportunity to call upon our president to stand.
What does it mean the situation has been resolved?
He just ended the war.
He ended the war?
Why did he have to go and do
I think
that?
the CIA just cut a better deal.
He ended the war?
As the innocence of a child. Nothing.
He can't end the war. He's not producing this.
Remember when any president of the United States was hit with the flu, a war, and accused of sexual misconduct by a teenage girl, all in the same 7-day period. This, of course, only days before he runs for re-election.
We have just received information from sources at the CIA that confirms the cessation of hostilities with
The
Albania.
CIA.
You know, CIA?
CIA.
The
yeah,
CIA?
I thought they let us out of there too easily.
That was over, guys.
No.
It's over. I saw it on television.
I'm gonna have to sell my house.
The war's not over. No, the war isn't.
Oh, they forgot the hero. And the hero that they end up getting is Woody Harrelson. And through a very ridiculous series of events, they end up with Woody Harrelson, who is actually a criminally insane former serviceman who causes additional problems. We'll just put it that way. And before they can get the hero of the war back to Washington in order to have the hero's welcome that is going to time perfectly just before the election, Woody Harrelson dies. And so they are now left saying, well, now what do we do? Now we don't have the hero's welcome. Now what do we do? And so, and I'm not going to explain any more of the story because I think I gave you enough, first of all, and second of all, to get an appreciation of it, and second of all, because I don't want to give away the ending of the movie. But suffice to say that they continue on, and each event it has something catastrophic that leads the spin to get bigger and bigger and bigger until it snowballs. And yet, they're able to keep up with it. And they're able to keep it going. And they're able to keep this deception because at the end of the day, what do we know other than what we hear on the news, other than what the reports are? And who's going to tell them that there is no war? Who's going to tell the American people, stop, there's no war, this is ridiculous? No one. Because the only people that we can rely on to tell us that or to report that to us is the news. And if they're going along with it, and if they're just taking that ball and running with it, when they start out, they do, a 30-second clip of Kirsten Dunst running with a bag of chips. And suddenly, the next thing you know, the media has this entire story about this young girl fleeing from terrorists because her family is originally from Canada or something ridiculous like that. And the media has taken it, and the media has grown and grown and grown the story until it gets beyond what these people even imagined it could be. And who's going to ever tell the American people it's not true? Or is someone going to come up and say, there's no war. The wars are false. The war was filmed in a Hollywood studio. Who's going to believe it? After they have the news out there, they've seen with their own eyes the young girl running through the Canadian or the Albanian hinterland. How do they know? Well, they don't. Because the only people that they can rely on, the American people can rely on to tell them the truth, are the people benefiting from it being a war. Because they're getting the hits and the views and the clicks and the media attention. So who's going to tell them that it's not real? How do we know there was a moon landing? We have no idea. How do we know who shot JFK? We have no idea. Because as long as the media keeps perpetuating these spins, the only thing and it used to be, we could at least depend on, well, if you see the photograph, if you see the image, if you hear the person say it. Well, but that can all be faked now. So now how do we know? Well, we don't. At the end of the day, you have to use your common sense. And you have to discover who it is that you can believe, who you trust to evaluate it all in order to come up with the truth. And in a lot of cases, you will never actually know what the truth is. And, you know, the thing I love about this movie is it's such an engaging, such a clever movie. And you have to pay attention to get some of the jokes, because some of the jokes, you have to know what they're talking about, and then they're even funnier. You know, it's one of those movies that there are a lot of what you would consider almost inside jokes. Like, this film was made during the Bill Clinton era. And it was like something like a month after this movie came out, he was explaining Monica Lewinsky and the couch, you know, so, and the blue dress. So it's very much so something that you have to be a little bit highbrow to understand some of the jokes. But even if you don't, you'll still get a laugh out of 90% of it. It's even funnier if you can get those inside political jokes and that political satire that goes along with it. That is such an important part of the movie. But it shows you how they do it. And you watch and see the media get involved, and you watch and you see how simple it really is to convince people of a lie. It's easier to convince someone of a lie than that they've been deceived. Because when you have to convince them that they've been deceived, you have to first undo the lie and then convince them again. And that's why it's so easy to spin things and create this narrative and manipulate people into believing whatever the hell you want them to believe, really. Now, I'd like you to think, as we look at the potential of us going to war with Venezuela, as we look at everything that we're seeing from the Charlie Kirk investigation, as we see the way our government is running today, do you see parallels between this movie and what our reality has become? Because I sure do. And if you do agree, please give this video a thumbs up. Share your thoughts with me down in the comments. As I said, I always reply. And thank you very much for listening. And I hope you have a great day.